Hey everyone, it's been a minute and I wanted to come on here and share some updates um, from the last year about my healing journey that I've been on since leaving Oregon. Um, I left my home in Oregon about a year ago and hit the road uh, for searching for like minded intentional community. And I ended up now here. I'm in Black Mountain, North Carolina, living here next to an eco village called Earth Haven. So that's fairly recent development for me, and I have landed here for a while. And yeah, so I made a promise to myself after I recovered that I would come on and share with people a little bit about what I learned, a little bit about the journey, and the protocols that I was taught and used to recover from the the illness, and I'll tell you a little bit about more about that. So my journey started in Naples, Florida, and I originally went there to volunteer at a therapeutic horse ranch, and um, eventually the adventure ended up in, unfortunately, my getting exposed to toxic pesticides in Naples, Florida. I had a few different exposures. One was sort of gradual exposure of household pesticides, and the other two were due to agricultural and commercial use. Um, so while living in Naples, I slowly was unable to, participate in daily life. I lost my ability to function to the point where I was unable to leave my house or my bed for a period of almost 3 months. Um, at, During this time, I sort of put a pause on my life. I had to um, basically, I got on all of several medications that were helping me barely survive. And after a few months of living this way, I ended up in Ennis, Texas. And in Ennis, there was a safe housing facility called Regina Saeli. And when I arrived there, I found myself with about uh, 12 other people who had also suffered some kind of toxic environmental exposure that landed them in chronic, debilitating illness. And this place is basically a safe housing facility. So the buildings are built with non toxic materials, they don't spray anything, there's very little exposure to pollution or man made environmental toxins. And this place was really special in that, they created kind of a safe haven for people to, ideally recover. Although in many cases it was more of a holding place for people, and until they could find some kind of healing center or place where they could find true recovery. So that's what this place for me was. And um, while living at Regina Saeli, um, I smile now because part of me is like, wow, I'm gonna go to this place and find my healing. I'm gonna finally get better after, you know, pretty much living in hell for 3 months in Naples. And what ended up happening was that it was more of like a gestation period um, for where I would end up next, which would be where I would find my true recovery. So at Regina Saeli, I did a lot of inner work here. This is where I kind of was forced to go within. I'm not sure how else to say that, but really I started writing a lot. I joined this program, maybe some of you are familiar, called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Myself and a group of other people would connect every week and share about our journeys in exploring different art forms. And mine was writing, and one of the main tools is called is a journaling practice called morning pages. And every morning for 3 months, I would wake up after a little bit of just sitting meditation, and I would just start writing, just getting really, some people call it toxic journaling because it's not really very creative. It's just, the point is to kind of get the thoughts, the feelings, everything out of your system. So basically I would just write for 20 minutes, fill 3 pages like a madwoman. And interestingly, I learned at some point that in Chinese medicine, there is a connection between the lungs, which is what I was dealing with. I had chronic asthma because of the pesticide exposure. But interestingly, on a more esoteric level, Chinese medicine has connected the emotion of grief to the lungs. And after this extended period of writing, I soon realized that a lot of what I was sort of able to move through and let go of and release was grief. And I had been carrying this around with me for who knows how long. And it was just adding other layers, unnecessary layers, let's say, to the original, sorry about the lighting here, to the original offender, which was the pesticides, right? So I noticed actually after a few months of doing that program that that I was already starting to feel a little bit better, even though I still couldn't function. Like, had to have people help me, do basic tasks, laundry, barely could still leave the house. I mean, it almost was like the experience of if you could wake up one morning and end up in the body of someone who is at the last stages of their life. That's what daily life was like for me. So, still being at this place, eventually after some time, this, toxic journaling turned into more of like creative writing. And I started writing poetry in this place, and with the encouragement of a group of women, a women's circle with a woman named Kelly Brogan, I really started to share my inner world and my creative gifts with this wonderful, amazing group of women. And, thinking back on it, it was like, wow, I wonder, is this what it had to take for me to finally do that? So anyway, during this period, something else I did while I was kind of, waiting on I don't know what for my miracle, let's say, I worked a lot with mind-body medicine. And what I mean by this is I did practice using guided visualizations and guided imagery. And what this was, and I've heard athletes do this, like in the NBA, sometimes basketball players will, play the game out before they're actually on game day going to the courts. And there's been research shown that the players who did active guided visualization of the game prior to versus players who didn't do any kind of guided imagery exercises had higher scores and like higher rates of success. So it's based on that. And basically what I did was I used a method taught by a mindset mentor to create an intention and a vision for well-being and like optimal health. So how I did that was I created like a detailed picture in my mind of what my life would be like when I got better. Like, where would I go? What would I do? Who would I do it with? How would I feel like? You know, what would it feel like to be able to go for a walk again and, you know, breathe with ease and pleasure and, you know, go to the places I want to go. So I did a lot of that. I had time on my hands because I couldn't do anything else. And this is what I spent some time doing. And so this, coupled with emotional healing work using a method called the completion process, and this is something you can look up. It's like another guided visualization that works more on the emotional level to heal, you know, present day difficulty that's rooted in historical incidents. So these two tools basically really helped, I would say, relieve all of the added layers of really suffering that can sometimes accompany a chronic debilitating illness. Because of course there's the original, you know, illness itself causing the symptomology, but then, you know, what I discovered in my journey was I was just, all of the stories and the emotion and the way I was thinking and telling people about my illness was actually making it a lot worse for me. So until I could actually get better, that was the level I could work on. And it did make a difference. Even before I really found recovery, like there was some lightness that I was able to find from working on that level. So I share that because I would like to, you know, if there's people listening who are still in the middle of their journey or have been on a healing path of chronic illness for months and even years, which I know there's a lot of you out there. I've met you in my path, that working on these other levels beyond the physical is, you know, always an option. And also I feel like for myself, I don't know that I would have landed at the physical recovery had I not gone to these other spaces first. So that was my path there for my time in Texas. And I'm just gonna get a sip of tea here. So after 3 months of living in this facility in Ennis, Texas, I was told about a healing center in Douglasville, Georgia. And this place, I mean, the stories I heard was that they help people kind of recover from so-called incurable illnesses using intensive accelerated sauna therapy. And this is a method of using infrared sauna, like red light therapy, as a way to, like, as a cellular detox. And it was developed by Dr. Daniel and David Root and has since been adapted by, you know, naturopaths and health practitioners around the world. So this is where I landed and eventually found my recovery. And I will tell you now a little bit about what all that entailed. It was a very intensive program. It was um, almost like a rite of passage, I would say, because it was not just, it's not like a luxury spa. You don't just go in, go to the sauna and you know, go about your day. It was a very intensive program, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I share this not to put people off that it kind of takes some how do you say, like some grit or work to heal, because I do believe fundamentally that um like everything that I did was just supporting my body's direction for healing, which it was already going on. It was already in that trending in that direction. I had signs all along the way that I was improving, even though I couldn't see like the final goalpost. Um, but just to say, like that experience in this facility made me realize like that what I had to go through to actually find recovery involved like a sense of sacrifice almost. And even if that was just sacrificing comfort or, you know, sweating for 2 hours and being uncomfortable in that way, or, just things that we might not think of as being um, like game changers, but actually turned out to be like the very thing that got me well. So yeah, this method, along with infrared sauna, included a juicing protocol, the use of a Rife frequency machine, and you can look a little bit more into that or reach out to me if you want to know more about that. Light exercise, and the power of group prayer. So yeah, like I said, if you have more specific questions about the protocol itself, feel free to reach out to me. So yes, this is where I would finally find my recovery and gain my health, strength, and vitality back, and a renewed will to live, which, if you or someone you love has struggled with chronic illness, you will know that, it's not very sexy to talk about, but there's a point at which one can lose their will to live. And I share that because I do believe there's always a spark in us of something that is almost like a survival mechanism that goes on no matter what, which I believe is what ultimately landed me in this place, in the company of people who would help me turn this around. But I did just want to honor that was a part of my journey too. And if you are experiencing that, or if you have gone through that at some point, you're not alone. There's nothing strange about feeling that way. And, there is an arc to it that, will pass. So yeah, so basically the program was a month and a half of intensive detox. And after it was finished, after the month and a half, I was able to go for a hike. I remember being there. There was like these trails near Douglasville where I would go for a 2-hour hike, no medication, totally medication free for the first time in 6 months. And this was unthinkable even a month ago, because I had been so dependent on these, the puffers and even pills and all the things I was doing to do basic daily tasks. So to be able to be up in like elevation, kind of humid weather, with no meds and go for a hike was just nothing short of miraculous. So, I, so yeah, so all of that at the end really felt like nothing short of a miracle. And it really is thanks to the support and encouragement and these practices I learned from these various mentors in the field of mind body wellness. And again, just to reiterate, if people want to know specifically about the various modalities I use to recover, send me a private message. I'm more than happy to point you towards where you can find additional info or resources on any of these protocols. Some of them are more general, others are more specific. And I will say, while I did this at like a facility with the support of like a group of people, this is something you can potentially do in your own home with the support of a partner or even a friend to hold space and create sort of a container for the process. If you have the tools like a sauna or a juicer. And that being said, there is something to be said for the power of group healing and healing with a group of people who are keeping your ideal scenario, ideal outcome in mind, which for me was pretty surprising because I was like, oh, I'm a powerful creator, I'm a powerful being, I can use my mind to create my future, create my own reality. But something I realized was that my mind alone was not strong enough. It's when I got together with 6 or 7 other people who were really shepherding me and kind of carrying me through that vision to the other side, that then I could step in with my special powers. But before that, I was kind of like I really needed others vision and support for that. So yeah, in a nutshell, to just break this down in a super simple way before signing off here, I would say that some of the just bare bones, like valuable lessons I learned from recovering from this illness and the pesticide exposure are here. So the first thing is number 1, attending to and nurturing my emotions is critical to my physical well-being. Okay, big part of illness, especially with lungs, is emotional healing. Like, we carry a lot of our emotions in this part of our body, and if we don't have like avenues of expression for that, at some point the body is taking that on. I wish it wasn't so, but there's only so much there's only so much of a burden the body is able to carry before it starts showing signs of illness. And I do believe this, that it was not just the pesticides that contributed to this. So number 2, it's okay to let oneself get into hopelessness and despair, and we don't have to go there alone. That was a big one for me too. Number 3, hold on to the people who are willing to see you beyond the limits of your current experience. Yeah, like I said with the team there and with the various mentors I had, always people in the background holding the highest vision. Could not do that for myself. Number 4, even in the darkest moments, I can use my will to focus my attention on what is working and to bring some attention towards some small thing that is going okay. Like some people call this, positive focus. Other people call it finding gratitude. Honestly, when you're in like the depths of illness or hell, like this is the last thing you want to do. The last thing you want to do is find some kind of silver lining or look for what feels good. because you're just in such shit, right? It's like, no, don't tell me to do that. WTF. And I found, especially towards the end there, before I went to Georgia, where things were just looking really like I had tried everything until that point, and it was looking really bleak, that actually Annie Hopper, someone who also had some very debilitating limbic system injury, created a method that really teaches people how to do this step by step. And yeah, it created a lot of relief to find little things that were going okay for me. And it helped me continue on a journey upward toward what would eventually become recovery instead of, the downward spiral. So I would say that was the value of that. Number 5, there's always some relief, or dare I say, pleasure, to be found even amidst the most painful of experiences. The question is, how can I use my mind, body, to find clues that will take me to the relief that's already waiting for me? So I feel like I just said that, but that was a bit of a like investigation for me. Like, where can I find a little bit of relief here? Like, I'm sitting and I'm kind of stuck at home, or I can't be out and do all the fun things with my friends and people. What about like the tree that's outside my window, and the leaves that are blowing around, and how the breeze, hits my face when the wind blows through the window? Like, those very seemingly little things, I would say, are definitely helped me get through the tough moments. And then finally, the last 2 here are writing, and specifically journaling is a powerful tool to release stored and stuck emotion, trauma, and energy from the body system. I shared about the Artist's Way. That's a wonderful model for, even if you're not a writer, to work through this, and also just to have a kind of a listening ear when you don't necessarily have someone that you can or want to talk to in the moment. That a journalist kind of can become a friend in a way. And I would say, like, I will and continue to practice this because it's just such a useful tool, like, even not in the dire of circumstances. And finally, when all else fails, if you're sick or facing a life-threatening illness, focus on creativity. And I personally believe that this last one is one of the maybe deeper or less understood reasons of why I was faced with such a life-changing illness so early in life. I mean, I just turned 38, and never would have I ever thought that I would go through this in the last year of my life. But on the other side of this, I do believe that maybe, like, the spiritual or bigger picture here was to uncover these latent talents and creativities. I just know for sure that I personally would not have devoted, like, the time, energy, attention to writing, and I wouldn't have discovered my love of poetry had I not gotten that sick and been forced to, like, just stay in one place for long enough. Because if you know me, I'm such a mover and a shaker. I'm always going somewhere, and this thing that happened, like, kept me stabilized in one place long enough to discover these hidden talents. So next time, I hope it won't take an illness to get me to pay attention to my artist and embrace the freedom of expression that can come through writing. Because really, I feel like when I discovered this thing, it was like, oh, there's more. I found more freedom after going through this intense period of intensity than I would have otherwise. So, I definitely was not expecting that. So, for anyone listening, this is kind of an aside, but for people listening who were there for me during this journey, including my mentors, the various people I crossed paths with who I was able to lean on for support and guidance, the healers who taught me that I have everything within myself to find radical healing, my family for their relentless support, and the women's circle for like their celebration, and of course my friends who I would sometimes call up in my darkest of times. I appreciate you all more than you know. And without the support of other people, their guidance and encouragement, like, there would not be an other side to this. I think if I had to distill everything that I experienced, was that healing can't happen. First of all, it can't happen in the environment where we got ill, which for a while I was pretty set on getting better in Florida and healing in Florida, because it was like, I'm at the beach, it's the perfect environment, warm weather. So I kind of had to let that whole thing go because I just kept getting worse there. And the other thing I had to let go is just trying to figure this whole thing out on my own. I did get, to a certain place, because if you know me, I'm into herbs and nutrition and well-being. But at some point I hit like a dead end, and I had to look for answers in places that I least expected and in people that I least expected. And, I think that's probably where I'll end this is, keeping beginner's mind an open mind, even when you feel like I've tried everything, which, if you're listening to this and you have struggled with chronic illness or currently are, you might also be at the end of your rope, like you've tried everything. And, I don't really have wise words. I just want to validate that I've been in that space too, and it can feel really hopeless. And, I promised myself that if I ever got better, I would, at least come on here and share this story, because I know there's other folks who are still in the middle of theirs right now. So thank you for listening and letting me share this story. And as I said, if you have specific questions on these protocols or some of these modalities I did, please do reach out. I feel like it is my duty, now that I'm better, to pay it forward, because I can't imagine what I went through, other people going through the same thing. And so anyway, thank you for listening, and thanks for checking the update, and leave me a message. All right, much love.